So welcome to the Agricultural Biosecurity Funding and Network Forum. I'm Dr. Julie Smith. I'm the Project Director of the Animal Disease Biosecurity Coordinated Agricultural Project, and I'm glad that you are all here for this great discussion that we're going to have. We're going to have some good give and take tonight. We have two panels, and the first one will be discussing funding opportunities that may support further efforts to enhance agricultural biosecurity. And the second will be discussing important networks connected to agricultural biosecurity. I will introduce you to one panel at a time, and I want to make sure that you're aware that additional biographical details of our panelists can be found through the conference agenda that's on our symposium website at ADBCAPsymposium.com. On my left, next to me, is Dr. Peter Johnson, National Program Leader with USDA NIFA, the National Institute of Food and Agriculture. Peter has been involved in planning, organizing, and managing animal health-related programs, including research, extension, and education, for the last 27 years. You don't change, though, Peter. No, not at all.
I do. The cells do.
Next to him is Dr. Robert O'Connor, Program Director with the National Science Foundation. Bob has been directing the Decision, Risk, and Management Sciences program at NSF for about 19 years. He has expertise and involvement in NSF programs related to climate assessment and perceptions of climate change. On the end, to my left, your right, is Dr. Tim Kurt, Scientific Program Director with the Foundation for Food and Agriculture Research, or FFAR. Tim's programs encompass antimicrobial stewardship in food animal production, chick sexing prior to hatch, technologies for real-time assessment of broiler bird welfare, and perhaps most relevant for this audience, a mechanism for rapidly supporting research in the face of emerging disease threats. The acronym for this program is ROAR. We were talking about this, some of us earlier, Rapid Outcomes in Agricultural Research. Now, I have asked each member of the panel to provide a 5 to 7 minute overview of programs in their portfolio that they deem most relevant to efforts to support agricultural biosecurity. And hopefully, through talking to me, they have a good idea of which programs they want to talk about, because I can't talk about all of them. And after they go through their overview, I'll have a follow-up question or two, and then we'll open the floor to questions from the audience if we have time. And I do want to remind all of you here, for the benefit of folks who may be listening to our forum at a later time, to please wait until you have a microphone in hand before saying your name and beginning your question or comment. So we appreciate your help with that. So with that, I would like us to go ahead and we'll let Peter have the floor for a few minutes.
Okay. Can I have that thing?
You can have actually this thing right here.
Thanks, Julie. I have to say I give a lot of talks, but sitting in a chair like this feels pretty fun. Feels like I'm a political candidate. It's just town hall meeting. So you have a handout here. It's 5 pages, but front and back. So in 5 to 7 minutes, obviously, I'm just going to skim over it. Julie also got an electronic version, so that can be shared with you. The essence is that I think there's a lot of good that is coming out of the project and that continues to come out. When the project ends, there's a lot more that can be done with what you've developed. Therefore, my approach has been to give you as many projects as I could possibly think about that relate to one or more aspects of what you're doing, so that whether it be starting now or starting when the project funding ends, you think of yourselves, and you probably already do, as entrepreneurs, and you're looking for places where pieces of what you're doing can continue. Okay, so the first one is the largest way you could continue, and Julie's aware of this, the Sustainable Agricultural Systems solicitation. By the way, these are primarily going to be in a program called Agriculture and Food Research Initiative. And all you have to know about that is it's USDA's largest competitive grants program. And that's why there's a lot of programs that I'll just skim. So within the Sustainable Ag Systems, this is the closest and actually the only remainder of a program that looks like the one that funded this project when you were funded under Food Security Challenge Area. $10 million is the maximum, $2 million per year. It has to be integrated. It has to be systems-oriented, transdisciplinary. You have all the ingredients to do this. Okay? So enough said about that. The deadline is there for letters, the deadline for proposals also. So on the next page, on the back, maybe not all of you are aware of a program within the foundational and applied solicitation. And the one I'll draw your attention to is called Diseases of Agricultural Animals. So you work with diseases and disease prevention. It has a number, this program is very broad. It has a number of priorities. The priorities are listed to not exclude anyone that is going to make a difference in terms of reducing animal disease or preventing animal disease or recovering from animal disease. And the one priority I put in here and bolded, disease prevention and control management, including predictive disease algorithms. Okay? So you're doing a lot of modeling, and it can fit here. Now, the scope is smaller than what you're doing. It's $500,000 for the whole project. That includes 30% in direct costs. But if you have a certain proposal that we call a partnership, then you can get $650,000. And this is only in a couple of programs, including this one. A partnership is combining an EPSCoR state, which are the states in the U.S. that haven't been as competitive with this program. Vermont is an EPSCoR state, okay? There are 19 of them. So you can't just submit from Vermont, though. You'd have to have, say, Vermont with somebody who's not EPSCoR, or Vermont and another EPSCoR. Doesn't matter. You could have 2 or more EPSCoRs, but you have to have a partnership between EPSCoR and something else that could be EPSCoR or not. You could have a partnership with a minority serving institution. That would qualify. You could have a partnership with a small, mid-sized institution that hasn't been successful with our program. And there's a table that you can use to determine that. There's a chart at the back of the solicitation. You could even have an international partnership. What that'll get you is an extra $150,000. So it's not a lot more, but it's an incentive. Okay? So, and I gave you an example of an award that started last year, linking network models of swine movement patterns with potential disease outbreak processes across the U.S. And you can read the objectives, but I think you'll see some commonality in terms of perhaps your interests. Food safety and defense is another program. I'll let you read that. Engineering for ag production systems, that's only if there's any engineers in here who are working in sensor development. Maybe that doesn't apply to you. Critical agricultural research and extension or CARE, that is you have applied research and you want to take it to the field. And you might have different pieces of your project that you could divide up into multiple CARE projects, okay? There's tactical sciences for agricultural biosecurity. That probably rings truest to your heart. That's a new program. And just look at the priorities, detection diagnostics of transboundary and emerging pests and diseases, as well as rapid response to and recovery from all those pests and diseases. Okay? Next page, interdisciplinary engagement in animal systems, ideas. This is a new program. This is essentially you take something within animal sciences or veterinary medicine and you connect it with another discipline. That's a simplified view of it, but that's the reality. So connect it with communications approach for animal sciences, okay? And that's not just biosecurity, that's all of animal science or veterinary medicine. The FACT program, that's if you're looking, well, you've got decision support tools. So if you're looking at big data analytics, look at that program. Next, ecology and evolution of infectious diseases. This is if you want $2.5 million. This is a program, and I could see you doing this. Okay, so predictive, you have to develop a model that predicts disease transmission. I could see you doing it for biosecurity. And I'll stop there, but do look at the education and workforce development.
Just push it. It's not, oh, that button.
So there's
Got
more
it.
here.
I don't have an iPhone.
That sounds like some kind of a cowbell. You know, it's
So Bob,
Okay.
you're next.
yeah. Okay, I'll be quick and incoherent. We don't have any programs at all that are directly focused, but there's lots of programs that could fund a lot of what you'd like to do, whether you know it or not. NSF is a weird agency in that we're not a mission agency. I mean, our mission is to support basic research and to promote the public good and some other amorphous terms. One metaphor I'd have here is that if someone sent my program a proposal to cure cancer, I'd look at it and probably return it without review. Because first off, we don't do diseases, NIH does that, although we do risky behavior, so related where people get sick, but okay. And I'd return it because it looks like applied research. Now, if you come in with the same actual project and say, you have a new theory of how cells divide in radical ways. The traditional theory is so-and-so. You have a new theory that you're going to test with some epidemiological data, and you're going to zap some mice in certain ways and see if this new theory works. We have two funding criteria. Intellectual merit is one. The second is broader impacts. We would certainly review it and probably fund it. The broader impacts of curing cancer would be phenomenal, and so, okay, you get the point. For us, it's a framing issue. I mean, what's the basic research? And it can be across disciplines, and in deciding where to put something, or where to apply, ask yourself to what's literature are you is most appropriate. My program is Decision Risk and Management Sciences. My Nobel Prize winners are from the judgment and decision-making communities, Danny Kahneman, Dick Thaler, behavioral economics. I also have Bill Nordhaus on the risk side, the current winner for the DICE model of climate change. And my favorite is Lynn Ostrom for her work on the commons. So my point is that the DRMS communities are fairly broad. One project I funded a few years ago was a study of the management of the lobster and flatfish industries in the state of Maine. And the problem is that one of those industries has been remarkably successful in maintaining stocks. The other has been, some would fund it as a dismal failure, others would be a little more positive, but it hasn't been as effective. And you're controlling for the political climate and culture and so on. It's the same state in the same basic legal. Well, so this involved a game theorist, a historian, a cultural anthropologist, and they think they figured it out. So anyway, my point is that I get asked all the time, what's your priorities? What are you looking for DRMS? And the answer is, we don't have any. That I'm looking for you to make a case why what you want to fund is going to significantly teach us something we don't already know that would be good and important to know. It's up to the community. We may individually be, within the Beltway, be as bright as people outside, but we're not as bright as the thousands of scholars out there doing stuff. So that's how it works. I don't know what more. Again, we are not a mission agency. Most of the money is still in single programs. Many of these are single discipline, social psychology, sociology. My program supports psychologists, communications people, behavioral economists. It's multidisciplinary, and especially in the social sciences, we do a lot of co-reviewing across. If you're unclear, you have an idea, and you're unclear where it should go or if it's appropriate to NSF at all, send me a one-pager saying, this is what I'd like to do, this is the theoretical or methodological advance that's likely to ensue if this works, and here's the literature or literatures I'm building on. And I do get back to people usually within 48 hours, and it may not be my program. In some cases, I even say, well, there's somebody I know in EPA or even NIFA that you guys, that may be a home, but I don't really know, you need to contact that person. There is, we do fund some of these interdisciplinary competitions. One of that's coming online is SUS, Sustainable Urban Systems. And that includes urban and agriculture. And it's, the solicitation this last year was for workshops, but next year it would be for, substantial work. These would be $3 million awards. So take a look at that. It's certainly open to the type of work you guys are doing, and it will be explicitly interdisciplinary. Okay, I'm surprised the cowbell hasn't rung.
You've got a whole another minute.
I should tell you, I should have some credit. I'm actually a former registered dairy farmer in Pennsylvania, which tells you something about who's the typical farmer statistically. I had one cow, Gwen. And Gwen was lovable. She's since passed on. Gwen was delightful. She had a weight problem. She looked like a sofa. So I thought I would run out. I'll stay around a while. If any of you want to talk individually, let me know.
Thank you, Bob.
I reserve my rebuttal to the,
Should we wait for the timer to run out? Or?
No, you can go ahead and start, Tim. I've restarted the timer.
Okay, great. Thanks, Julie. Thanks for inviting me. And I'm Tim Kurt. I'm with the Foundation for Food and Agriculture Research. So if you're not familiar with our organization, we're a foundation that was established as part of the 2014 Farm Bill originally to support the USDA's mission, but we have a little bit of a different mechanism for working. So we actually match funds one-to-one with the private sector for everything we do. And we tend to be very applied in our programs, and they range quite broadly, as Julie mentioned. So I oversee all of our animal programs. So if you've got questions related to some of our work on antibiotic stewardship or animal welfare, I'm happy to talk about those separately, but I think the program that's most relevant to the conversation tonight is our Rapid Outcomes from Agricultural Research program, or ROAR, which is intended as a mechanism to provide funding very rapidly in the case of an emerging or re-emerging pest or pathogen outbreak. And this program does cover both crops and animals. The intent of this program is to provide a source of funding rapidly while longer-term sources of funds are sought from, for instance, NIFA. But in the case of an epidemic or an imminent threat to the nation's food supply, you can contact me. We typically will do this either by a phone call or by a one-page concept note describing the threat and why we should consider it for funding. And if we have you submit a proposal, we keep it very short, and we try to make a decision on that within about 7 days. So this program offers up to $150,000. There does need to be a one-to-one match from non-federal sources of funds. And we, again, are very much looking for actionable outcomes from these projects. So we tend not to fund things that are basic science. We really like to see partnerships with farmer and producer associations or other groups who can potentially implement the results from these projects. And it's a one-year project, so it's a short timeline, and that is very consistent with the goal of basically what are the short-term outcomes that we need to know. This is not really a mechanism for long-term support. But we do support research on development of diagnostic tools, mitigation strategies, surveillance and monitoring. We like to see things, if it's a new agent in the country, we sometimes will fund projects that are just looking at initial surveillance to ascertain where that has gone. So Asian longhorn tick, for instance, could be a candidate that's now in 10 states. I think it just emerged 2 years ago. Cattle fever tick, we've got a project on that. We are funding some work on ASF. We haven't announced those yet, so I can't really talk about the details of what those projects are. What are some other examples? We funded an app for farmer preparedness in the case that there's an avian influenza outbreak in the country. So we'll look at some kind of unusual types of digital tools and things like that as well. Otherwise, yeah, sort of traditional diagnostics and monitoring strategies, or how to potentially prevent and contain some of these things. I would say, though, they do have to be pretty high in their economic impact or regional significance, and we also don't fund the types of activities that APHIS might be involved with, where you get into depopulation or wildlife services types of activities. So if it's just complete eradication, that there needs to be a researchable question, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So happy to take any questions, and thanks for the opportunity again.
Let me reclaim 30 seconds of my time.
Please do.
I did not mention RAPID awards.
Yes.
Every NSF program is authorized to issue these awards. This is ephemeral data. You've got to get out there now. You can't send in a proposal and get funded 6 months later, because whether it's Zika, where we funded a number, and others, it's still got to be good science. I mean, what are you doing? How are you sampling? What's the research question? But we've been able to, you have to contact your program officer first, and often I get things that are really not ephemeral data. You could do this 8 months from now, so that's a no. But we'll be told to either submit it, and it's 5 pages. It's much shorter than our usual proposal, and we've been able to turn over these in a money promise in 3 days, 2 days, very, very quick. Now, you won't actually get the money until 6 weeks later, but the actual, and you can count on it, commitment you can get. Because if you've got to get out in the field to collect those data, you've got to get out in the field to collect those data. Bio funds a lot of this. If there's some plume somewhere, you can't wait.
Question?
So I'm going to open things right up for questions, because the questions I had prepared, I feel have been well addressed. So if you feel they have not, ask again, because my questions, I'm just going to tell you my questions, but don't feel like you have to answer them unless they say to. How does biosecurity align with your program's priorities? Did they do a good job with that? All right. And what would you recommend to someone who is interested in funding a proposal related to agricultural biosecurity through one of your programs? Did you feel like you had the steps explained that you need to take? All right. So what other questions do we need answered? And who can be the microphone rover?
I'll start with a question for Tim. The funding that you were
Please
talking about.
introduce yourself.
Joanna Cummings from the University of Vermont, and I'm interested in the funding match. It has to be from a private source. What if you had a grant, but you wanted to do something that was an offshoot of it, and you had like maybe half of the funding from a grant, but you needed a match? Would that work as something that you could propose?
If the grant was non-federal funds, if it's federal funds, we can't count it as a
Okay.
match.
All right, thank you.
Who else has a question? Someone should have a question.
Okay, great.
Not if everything was clear.
No, they want to know more, Peter. More.
Hi, Reagan Adams, CSU. Hi, Tim. I'm going to pick on you. It feels like FFAR comes out with their RFAs sort of irregularly. Perhaps you could expand on how people could keep up with you and explain even maybe the mechanism of your decision-making on how you guys roll those out.
Sure, and it's good to see you again, Reagan. So for this program, for the WAR program, we will accept applications on a rolling basis. So if there's something that we need to know about, please get in touch. We'll consider them at any time. Because of so we do have a couple of of opportunities that are open annually. FFAR is very new, as you might know. We just had our 5th year anniversary, and most of our programs have been created within the last 2.5 years. So we have a couple of funding opportunities outside of this one that are open annually. The Seeding Solutions funding opportunity and the New Innovators opportunity for early career faculty. These also do require a match. And the reason why some of our other opportunities are a little bit more sporadic is because we are constantly trying to line up the match so that you guys don't have to provide it and so that our applicants don't have to provide it. So we release those as we can, but those partnerships are difficult to align to a schedule. So for the foreseeable future, we'll probably make those available as soon as we can. But it's challenging to kind of make them fit an annual cycle.
Right.
I will say though, we do have we've just started a new veterinary student scholarship program for summer students, and some of their work could be related to ag biosecurity as well. So that provides funding for veterinary students to do a summer research project, and there is a 1-to-1 match requirement, but it will provide $4,000 for that student to participate in the Summer Scholars Program and then travel to the National Veterinary Scholars Symposium at the end of the summer.
Great,
Yeah.
great. I'm a big fan of the program. I just wanted everybody else to, sign up. You send out emails about what you're doing, but it's such a creative new source of funding that I wanted Tim to expand on.
Oh, sorry.
I'd like to hand it this way so we can have something added from one of our panelists I haven't introduced yet, but she'll get a full introduction shortly.
I'll just add, in case you are interested in students, NIFA does have pre- and postdoctoral fellowships, and our EEU program, which are research and extension experiential learning programs for undergraduate students. The postdoctoral fellowships are not very competitive. I mean, we are able to fund quite a lot, almost everything that's been in the fundable category has been funded. So it's a good source of funding as well, and that comes out, and that RFA is open currently.
Thank you.
Okay, I have the microphone. I'm Gabriella Buccini from the University of Vermont, and to the three of you, I want to ask you what role needs to have education in these fundings? How important it is to include education or outreach?
So for NIFA and on this page with all these programs, they all vary. So I've indicated if they include research, if they require research. So just look at this and you'll know. It varies. Each program has different stipulation.
Okay, it's an education component and an outreach component are not required. It would help in the broader impacts category. It's more specific to what you're doing. In some cases, outreach really wouldn't, or dissemination may not be really relevant. In other cases, yes, but it's not required.
So I would say for us, dissemination is very much required, but education is not usually a big component of this particular program.
Broader impacts for us, the biggest meaning is this new knowledge would be useful for society. That's the key.